Commander Frank Miller stood at the viewport of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Audacity. The ship cruised slowly through the darkness at the edge of human space. Stars glittered against the black. Frank sipped his coffee and watched the empty space ahead. Another quiet patrol, he said to himself. The bridge of the Audacity hummed with the soft sounds of machines working. 6 crew members sat at their stations. They monitored screens and occasionally spoke into their headsets. Lieutenant Olivia Wright sat at the communication station. Her fingers moved quickly over her screen. "Commander," she said suddenly, "I'm picking up something strange." Frank walked to her station. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "Multiple objects entering our sensor range. Big ones." Olivia's eyes widened as more data appeared on her screen. "Very big ones." The main screen at the front of the bridge changed to show a cluster of dots moving toward them. Each dot grew larger as the computer analyzed their size. "How many?" Frank asked. 27 large vessels, many smaller ones too." Olivia looked up at him. "They're not one of ours." The bridge fell silent. Humanity had explored nearby star systems but had never encountered intelligent alien life. Until now. Gregory Pearson, the chief engineer, walked onto the bridge. He was a tall man with messy brown hair and oil stains on his uniform. "What's all the excitement about?" he asked. Frank pointed at the screen. "First contact, it seems." Gregory whistled. "Well, I'll be damned." Frank straightened his uniform. "Battle stations, just in case our new friends aren't friendly." Alarms sounded throughout the ship. Crew members rushed to their positions. Weapon systems came online, shields powered up. "They're hailing us," Olivia said. "Visual communication." Frank nodded. On screen. The main screen flickered. An alien appeared. It had purple skin with gold markings. Its head was long and narrow with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. It wore an elaborate uniform with many decorations and symbols. "Primitive vessels," the alien said in perfect English. "You have the honor of addressing High Admiral Zexcalter of the glorious Celestial Imperium, rulers of 1,000 star systems and 10,000 worlds." Frank raised an eyebrow but kept his face neutral. "This is Commander Frank Miller of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Audacity. We greet you in peace." The alien made a sound like a snort. "Peace is available to you, human. The Imperium offers you the chance to submit to our rule. Your species will serve as a client race. Your resources will belong to the Imperium. Your people will enjoy our protection." Frank glanced at Gregory, who was studying a different screen showing scans of the alien ships. Gregory made a subtle hand gesture. "Not impressed." "That's a generous offer," Frank said to the alien. "But I'm afraid I don't have the authority to surrender my entire species. Perhaps we could arrange a proper diplomatic meeting." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. The Celestial Imperium does not negotiate with primitive species. You will submit, or you will be destroyed." Frank scratched his chin. "I see. Well, in that case, I'd like to know more about your Imperium before making such an important decision. How long have you been exploring space?" The alien seemed surprised by the question. "The Imperium has ruled the stars for 20,000 years. Our technology is perfected beyond your understanding. Our ships are invincible, our weapons unstoppable." 20,000 years? That's impressive, Frank said. He turned to Gregory. "What do you think of their ships, Chief?" Gregory stepped forward where the alien could see him. "Well, they're big. I'll give them that. Very pretty, too, with all those gold decorations. But," he tapped on his screen, "they've got exposed bridge sections, minimal armor in key areas, and their energy signatures suggest their weapons generate excessive heat. Not very efficient." The alien's purple skin darkened. "You dare to critique the divine designs of the Imperium? Our ships are the pinnacle of perfection." "No offense intended," Gregory said with a shrug. "Just making observations. Those decorative fins would create terrible drag in atmospheric flight, by the way." Frank hid a smile. "Hi, Admiral, we humans are a curious species. We're new to space travel, only been at it for a couple hundred years. We'd love to learn from your experience. Perhaps a technological exchange instead of submission. Exchange? The alien's voice rose in pitch. The Imperium does not exchange technology with primitives. You have one planetary cycle to prepare your submission protocols. After that, we will demonstrate our power. The screen went dark. Olivia turned in her chair. They've moved their ships to surround us, Commander. Frank nodded slowly. Interesting approach. What's your read on their technology, Gregory? The engineer was studying the scans. Their ships are big and old. The designs haven't changed much in what looks like thousands of years. They've got energy weapons, probably plasma-based. Shields too, but nothing special. How do we match up? Frank asked. Gregory grinned. Our shields should handle their weapons fine. Their ships are pretty, but ours are practical. They're charging weapons, said Heather Johnson, the security officer. She was a compact woman with short blonde hair and steady hands. She didn't look up from her station. Should I power up our defenses? Yes, but hold fire unless I give the order, Frank said. He sat in the command chair. Olivia, open a channel. Channel open. High Admiral Zex Kalter, Frank said calmly. We notice your ships are charging weapons. That seems unfriendly. We respectfully decline your offer of submission and suggest discussion instead. We have much to learn from each other. A burst of angry alien language came through the speakers before the translator caught up. You dare refuse the Imperium? You will witness our power. The alien ships fired. Purple gold energy beams shot toward the Audacity. They looked beautiful against the blackness of space. Shields holding at 97%, Heather reported calmly. No damage. Frank nodded. Don't return. Fire yet. Let's see what else they've got. More beams struck the ship. The lights on the bridge flickered once, then stabilized. Shields at 92%, Heather said. Their weapons are pretty, but not very powerful. Frank leaned forward in his chair. Olivia, open the channel again. Channel open, sir. High Admiral, we've received your demonstration. Now allow us to provide one of our own. Heather, fire one round from the main cannon. Aim for the empty space near their flagship. Heather pressed a button. The ship shuddered slightly. On the screen, a small projectile, barely visible as a streak, shot past the alien flagship. It continued for several seconds before hitting an empty area of space and exploding in a brief flash. That projectile was traveling at approximately 10% the speed of light, Frank said to the alien. We call it a kinetic energy weapon. Very simple technology, really. No need for fancy energy beams. The alien stared at them in silence for a long moment. What manner of deception is this? No primitive species could possess such weapons. No deception, Frank replied. Just different priorities in development. We focused on practical applications rather than appearance. The alien ships began to move back, creating distance between themselves and the Audacity. It seems we have much to discuss, human, the High Admiral said finally. Perhaps a diplomatic meeting would be acceptable. Frank smiled. I'm glad to hear that. We look forward to learning about your civilization. After the communication ended, the bridge crew exchanged glances. They're not at all what I expected from an ancient galactic empire, Olivia said. Advanced age doesn't guarantee advanced thinking, Frank replied. They've had power too long. They've forgotten how to innovate. He stood up from his chair. Prepare for diplomatic contact. This should be interesting. Outside the viewports, the ornate alien ships floated against the darkness, beautiful, ancient, and outmatched by a single human vessel. The shuttle from the Audacity approached the massive alien flagship. The Imperium vessel, called the Celestial Majesty, was 5 times larger than the human ship. Gold decorations covered its purple hull. Ornate spires and towers jutted out from its surface, glowing with soft light. Inside the shuttle, Commander Frank Miller adjusted his uniform. With him were Lieutenant Olivia Wright, Dr. Alan Martinez, and Security Officer Heather Johnson. All wore standard Earth Defense Force uniforms, blue and gray with minimal decorations. Remember, Frank said to his team, we represent all of humanity now. First impressions matter. Heather checked her sidearm. a compact pistol that fired concentrated energy bursts. Do you think they'll try anything? Frank shook his head. I doubt it. They seem more interested in talking now that they've seen what we can do. The shuttle docked with the alien ship. When the doors opened, the humans stepped into a corridor lined with shimmering gold. The ceiling was high and decorated with crystal chandeliers. Alien guards stood at attention, wearing elaborate armor that looked heavy and impractical. Welcome to the Celestial Majesty, said a slim alien with blue skin. I am Protocol Minister Vexlier. Please follow me to the Grand Hall. As they walked through the ship, the humans exchanged glances. Every surface was decorated. Nothing was simple or plain. Even the floor panels had intricate designs etched into them. Your vessel is impressive, Frank said politely. This ship has served as the flagship of the Imperium for 500 years. The Protocol Minister said proudly. The design has remained unchanged since its creation, as is proper. Dr. Alan Martinez, the science officer, raised his eyebrows but said nothing. His scanner, disguised as a simple wristband, quietly recorded everything around them. They entered an enormous room with a high ceiling. Floating pools of colored liquid hung in the air, suspended by gravity manipulation technology. Alien nobles in complex robes stood in groups, watching the humans with their 4 eyes. At the far end of the room, High Admiral Zex Kaltor sat on an elevated throne. Approach and bow before the representative of the Celestial Imperium. The Protocol Minister announced loudly. Frank walked forward confidently. When he reached the throne, he extended his hand instead of bowing. High Admiral, thank you for inviting us aboard. A shocked murmur ran through the crowd of aliens. The High Admiral's purple skin darkened with what seemed like anger or embarrassment. You do not bow? He asked. Humans shake hands when meeting as equals, Frank explained. It's our custom. After a moment of tension, the High Admiral extended his long-fingered hand. They shook briefly. Come, Zex Kaltor said, rising from his throne. We will speak in the strategy chamber. The strategy chamber was smaller but no less ornate. A 3-dimensional map of the galaxy floated above a table. Thousands of stars glowed, with purple areas showing Imperium territory. For 20,000 years, the Imperium has ruled the stars, Zex Kaltor began. Many species serve under our banner. All benefit from our protection and wisdom. 20,000 years is impressive, Frank said. Human civilization has only existed for a few thousand years. We've been in space for just a couple hundred. The alien seemed pleased. Then you understand why submission is logical. You are infants in the cosmos. Dr. Allen stepped forward. May I ask about your technology? How often do you update your ship? Designs? The alien looked confused. Update? The designs are perfect. They were created by the divine architects in the Golden Age. To change them would be heresy. Now the humans looked confused. Olivia spoke up. You don't improve your technology? Ever? Improvement implies the original was flawed. The Protocol, Minister said, sounding offended. Our ancestors perfected all technologies ages ago. Frank and his team exchanged glances again. This explained a lot. On Earth, Frank said carefully, we continuously improve our technology. Our ships are redesigned every few decades. The Audacity is already considered somewhat outdated, and it's only 7 years old. The aliens stared at them. This is madness, the High Admiral said finally. Perfect designs need no changes. With respect, Alan said, we've observed that your ships prioritize appearance over function. They're beautiful, certainly, but they sacrifice efficiency. A tall alien in ornate military dress stepped forward suddenly. Lies, he shouted. Our ships are the most powerful in the galaxy. His hand moved to a weapon at his side. Before anyone could react, Heather had her own weapon drawn and pointed at the alien. She hadn't even seemed to move. Her hand and weapon just appeared in position. I wouldn't, she said calmly. The alien froze, shocked by her speed. Your guards wear 30 pounds of decorative armor that limits movement, Heather explained. Your weapons take 2.3 seconds to draw due to their ceremonial holsters. My sidearm has been tracking your vital signs since we entered the room. The High Admiral made a sharp gesture and the guard stepped back. Fascinating, Zexkalter said, studying Heather. Your warriors are small but quick. Size doesn't matter, much with modern weapons, Heather replied, holstering her pistol smoothly. The High Admiral turned to Frank. Your ship withstood our weapons easily. How is this possible from such a young species? Frank considered his words carefully. Necessity and competition. On Earth, nations competed for centuries, driving innovation. In space, we prepared for threats we hadn't even met yet. And you change your designs? Regularly? The concept seemed to disturb the High Admiral. Constantly, Alan confirmed. The ship design that was perfect yesterday becomes outdated when something better is invented today. The protocol minister whispered something to the High Admiral, who nodded slowly. We would like to see your vessel, Zexkalter said. If you would permit a delegation to tour the Audacity, it would help us understand your species better. Frank smiled. We'd be honored. Our ship isn't as beautiful as yours, but I think you'll find it interesting. As they prepared to return to the shuttle, an alien noble stepped into their path. How can we know you speak truth? He demanded. Perhaps your ship is unique. Perhaps the rest of your fleet is weak. Frank smiled again. The Audacity isn't even our most advanced vessel. It's a mid-range patrol ship about halfway through its service life. The aliens stared at him. None of them spoke as the humans walked back to their shuttle. Inside, once the doors closed, Olivia turned to Frank. They don't innovate at all. They haven't changed their technology in thousands of years. Frank nodded. And they still managed to build an empire spanning thousands of star systems. Imagine what they could have accomplished if they hadn't stopped improving. Dr. Allen checked his scanner. Their technology isn't bad, it's just frozen in time. They have gravity manipulation, faster than light travel, energy weapons, but they've been using the exact same designs for millennia. No wonder they were shocked by our kinetic weapons, Heather said. They've never had to adapt to new threats. The shuttle detached from the alien flagship and headed back toward the Audacity. Through the viewport, they could see the Imperium fleet, dozens of massive, ornate vessels arranged in perfect, unchanging formation. Frank watched them thoughtfully. We need to be careful. They may be technologically stagnant, but they still control thousands of worlds. And wounded pride can be dangerous. Little did he know how right he was, or how soon the humans and the Imperium would need to work together. The Imperium delegation arrived at the Audacity the next day. High Admiral Zexkalter led 5 other aliens, including the protocol minister and several technical experts. They wore their formal uniforms with many decorations and symbols of rank. Gregory Pearson, the chief engineer, met them in the docking bay. The space was plain and functional, gray walls, equipment stored neatly, and clear markings on the floor for safety. Welcome aboard the Audacity, Gregory said. He was still wearing his work uniform with oil stains on the sleeves. Commander Miller asked me to show you around our ship. The aliens looked around the docking bay with disappointment. This is very simple, the High Admiral said. Gregory shrugged. We like to keep things practical. Follow me. He led them through corridors that were clean but basic. No decorations covered the walls. Every panel served a purpose. Signs and labels were clear and direct. Crew members passed by in uniform, nodding respectfully to the visitors. Where are your ceremonial halls? Asked the protocol minister. Your victory monuments. Your ancestor shrines? Don't have any, Gregory replied. Every cubic foot of space on a ship costs money to build and fuel to move. We don't waste space on things that don't serve a function. The aliens exchanged glances. This concept seemed strange to them. Gregory showed them the mess hall where crew members ate together, the small but efficient medical bay, and the crew quarters with their modest personal spaces. The aliens seemed increasingly confused by the simplicity. Now for the interesting parts, Gregory said. This is our manufacturing section. He led them into a large room filled with machines. Some were recognizable as 3D printers, but much more advanced. Others were assembly systems with robotic arms. We can make almost anything we need right here on the ship, Gregory explained. Replacement parts, new equipment, even weapons if necessary. One of the alien technical experts, a green-skinned female named Tixivor, stepped forward. You create new components during a mission? Without proper blessing ceremonies? Gregory nodded. Sure. If something breaks, we make a new one. Sometimes we even improve the design if we think of a better way to do it. Improve? During a mission? The concept seemed to shock her. Of course. That's how we get better. Gregory tapped commands on a screen. One of the machines began creating a small metal component. See? Just like that. The aliens watched in silence as the machine worked. In minutes, it had created a perfect part. This way to engineering, Gregory said, pocketing the newly made part. The engine room was the largest space they had seen. Massive. Fusion reactors hummed behind safety barriers. Energy conduits ran along the ceiling, glowing with power. Technicians monitored systems and made adjustments. These are our main power plants, Gregory said with pride. Fusion reactors, clean, powerful, and reliable. We also use fusion, the High Admiral said, seeming relieved to find something familiar. What generation? Gregory asked. The High Admiral looked confused. Generation? Yeah. How many times have you updated the design? We're on 8th generation fusion now. Started with fission about 100 years ago. Then first-gen fusion was pretty crude. We kept improving it. Our designs have remained unchanged for 10,000 years, one of the technical experts said proudly. Gregory stared at him. The same design for 10,000 years, but why? Because it was perfected by our ancestors, the expert replied. To change it would dishonor them. Gregory scratched his head. Your ancestors were smart, I'm sure, but they didn't know everything. Nobody does. This comment caused visible discomfort among the aliens. The protocol minister made a small gesture that seemed meant to ward off bad luck. The tour continued to the bridge, where Commander Frank was waiting. The bridge was functional like the rest of the ship. Screens displayed information clearly, stations were arranged for efficiency, and everything was within easy reach. What do you think of our ship? Frank asked the High Admiral. It is functional, Zex Keltor replied carefully. But where is the grandeur? The history? The soul? Frank smiled. We think the soul of a ship is in how well it performs its mission, not in how it looks. Dr. Alan Martinez joined them on the bridge. I've analyzed your technology based on our scans, he said to the aliens. Your ships have the foundation for incredible advancements, but they've been frozen in development. That is our way, the High Admiral said stiffly. Stability, tradition, continuity. May I show them? Alan asked Frank, who nodded. Alan tapped on a screen, bringing up a diagram of one of the Imperium ships. This is your current design, he said. Then he tapped again. And these are modifications that would improve efficiency by approximately 40% without changing the external appearance. The alien technical experts crowded around the screen. Their 4 eyes widened as they studied the diagrams. This would work, Tixivor admitted, sounding surprised. Silence, the High Admiral snapped. Such talk borders on heresy. An uncomfortable silence fell over the bridge. Frank stepped forward to change the subject when an alarm sounded. Incoming transmission from Earth Command, Olivia announced from her station. Priority 1. Put it through, Frank ordered. Admiral Patricia Rodriguez appeared on the main screen. Her face was grim. Commander Miller, we have a situation. 3. Colony ships at Proxima Centauri have sent distress signals. They're under attack. By whom? Frank asked. Unknown hostiles. Not matching any known signature. Admiral Rodriguez noticed the aliens standing on the bridge. I see you have company. Frank introduced the High Admiral quickly. Can you show us the attackers? The screen changed to show a fleet of ships unlike any they had seen before. They were sleek and black with no decorations. They moved in perfect coordination like a swarm of insects. The collective, High Admiral Zex Kaltor whispered, his purple skin paling to lavender, They have found this sector. You know these ships? Frank asked. The High Admiral nodded slowly. The Collective. Machine intelligence. They consume resources and expand. They have been a threat to the Imperium for 5,000 years. How do you fight them? Heather asked from her security station. We avoid them when possible, the High Admiral admitted. They adapt too quickly to our weapons. Frank and his crew exchanged looks. A civilization that never changed its technology would indeed struggle against an enemy that could adapt. Admiral Rodriguez, Frank said, inform the colonies we're on our way. We'll bring friends. He turned to the High Admiral. Will the Imperium stand with us against this threat? The alien hesitated, looking around at the simple but effective human ship. Finally, he nodded. We will join forces. Perhaps your adaptability will prove useful against the Collective. Prepare for immediate departure, Frank ordered his crew. Set course for Proxima Centauri, maximum speed. As the humans rushed to their stations, the aliens watched with new interest. Perhaps these strange, ever-changing humans had something valuable to teach the ancient Imperium after all. The Audacity raced through space, pushing its engines to maximum. The Imperium ships followed behind, their ornate hulls glowing as they traveled faster than light. Commander Frank Miller stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by on the main screen. Time to Proxima Centauri? He asked. 4 hours at current speed, Lieutenant Olivia Wright replied from her station. High Admiral Zex Calter stood nearby, his 4 eyes fixed on a display showing the Collective ships attacking the human colony. Your colonies have only 3 defense vessels, he noted. The Collective has 20 ships. They cannot hope to survive. Human ships are tough, Frank said, and our colonists are resourceful. Still, they are outnumbered. Frank nodded. Tell me more about these Collective ships. What are their weaknesses? The High Admiral made a gesture that seemed to indicate frustration. They have no fixed weaknesses. When we find one, they adapt and eliminate it. Their ships are controlled by machine intelligence. They learn from every battle. Dr. Alan Martinez joined them, carrying a tablet computer. I've analyzed our scans of the Collective ships. They appear to use some form of hive mind, all ships connected to a central intelligence. Do they communicate with each other? Heather Johnson asked, from her security station. Can we jam their signals? We have tried, Zex Calter said. They adapt their communication methods too quickly. Heather smiled. Human jamming technology is quite advanced. We've had to counter our own electronic warfare systems for decades. Gregory Pearson's voice came over the intercom from engineering. Commander, I've been looking at the Imperium ship designs with their technical expert Tix4. We've found a way to modify their weapons to be more effective against the Collective. Modification? The High Admiral sounded scandalized. Without proper approval from the Imperial Design Authority? There's no time for that, Frank said gently. Lives are at stake. Gregory, proceed with the modifications if our Imperium friends agree. Zex Caltor struggled visibly with the decision. Finally, he nodded once. Proceed, but only as a temporary measure. 4 hours later, they arrived at Proxima Centauri. The human colony was built on the 4th planet, a terraformed world, with blue oceans and growing forests. From orbit, they could see the battle. 3 human defense vessels fought against a swarm of black Collective ships. Despite being outnumbered, the human ships were still fighting. They've held out this long? The High Admiral seemed surprised. Human defense vessels are designed to handle multiple opponents, Frank explained, and colony defense is one of our priorities. The Collective is scanning us, Olivia reported. They're breaking off part of their attack force to engage us. All ships prepare for combat, Frank ordered. Imperium vessels, remain in formation with us. Follow our lead. The Imperium fleet takes orders from no one, protested one of the alien officers. Frank turned to Zex Calter. Hi, Admiral. Your ships outnumber mine, but we have more experience fighting adaptable enemies. I suggest a joint command for this battle. The High Admiral studied the tactical display, watching as 8 Collective ships approached them. Dossier. Human defense vessels continued to battle the remaining 12 enemy ships. "Very well," he said finally. "This once, the Imperium will follow human tactics." "Thank you. Heather, activate our electronic warfare systems. Target their communications. First." Heather nodded and worked at her console. "Jamming activated. Let's see how they like our noise." The collective ships suddenly broke their perfect formation, moving erratically as their coordination was disrupted. "It's working," Alan exclaimed. "They're having trouble maintaining their hive mind." "All ships, attack pattern Delta," Frank ordered. "Concentrate fire on the lead vessel." The Audacity fired its main cannon. A streak of light shot across space and slammed into the lead collective ship. The Imperium vessels followed with their modified weapons. Beams of energy, now focused and more efficient thanks to Gregory's modifications, struck the enemy vessel. The collective ship exploded in a flash of light. The remaining 7 enemy ships quickly changed their tactics, spreading out to avoid. "Concentrated fire. They're adapting," Zexkelter observed. "So will we," Frank replied. "Heather, change jamming frequencies. Olivia, tell the colony defense vessels to implement attack pattern Gamma." The battle continued for another hour. The collective ships were dangerous and adaptive, but the combined human and Imperium fleet fought with both efficiency and overwhelming numbers. When the last enemy ship exploded, a cheer went up from the human crew. "Victory," the High Admiral said, sounding relieved. "Though the main collective fleet remains. We need to protect the colonies while we deal with them," Frank said. He turned to Alan. "What have you learned about their tactics?" Alan displayed his findings on the main screen. "They use swarm intelligence. When one ship learns something, they all learn it. But this is also a weakness. They expect similar responses each time. They're not creative." "Predictable adaptations," Heather added. "Once we understood their pattern of adaptation, we could stay one step ahead." Zexkelter watched the human crew work with growing respect. For thousands of years, the Imperium has struggled against the collective. Yet in one battle, you found ways to counter them that we never considered. "Different perspective," Frank said diplomatically. "You have stability and tradition. We have adaptation and change. Each has value." The High Admiral was quiet for a moment. Perhaps the Celestial Imperium has been too resistant to change. Our ancestors were great, yes, but they did not face the challenges we face today." A message came in from one of the colony defense vessels. The captain's face appeared on screen, tired but triumphant. "Commander Miller, thank you for the assistance. We couldn't have held out much longer." "You did well," Frank replied. "What's the status of the colonies?" "Minor damage to the outer settlements. Some injuries, but no casualties. But Commander, our long-range sensors show more collective ships heading this way. A lot more." Frank turned to the High Admiral. "It seems our alliance will need to continue a bit longer." The alien nodded slowly. "The collective rarely commits small forces. They send waves until they succeed." He hesitated, then added, "My fleet will stand with you, but we will need more than modified weapons to defeat what comes next." Gregory's voice came over the intercom. "Commander, Tixavor and I have been working on something. A way to disrupt their hive mind permanently. But we'll need help from the colony's manufacturing facilities." "You have it," Frank said. "All of it." As human and Imperium ships took up defensive positions around the colony, the two civilizations began working together for the first time. The Imperium brought knowledge of their ancient enemy. The humans brought innovation and adaptability. Together, they prepared for the coming storm. On the bridge of the Audacity, Frank watched the stars where the enemy would soon appear. "You know," he said to the High Admiral. "For civilizations that just met, we make a pretty good team." Zexkelter's mouth formed what might have been the alien equivalent of a smile. Perhaps there is something to this change after all. 3 days after the first battle, the main collective fleet arrived at Proxima Centauri. 50 black ships appeared at the edge of the system, moving in perfect coordination like a single organism with many parts. Inside the colony's main facility, humans and Imperium aliens worked side by side. Gregory Pearson and Tixvor led the effort to build a special device. Engineers from both species contributed ideas and made adjustments. "Is it ready?" Commander Frank Miller asked as he entered the workshop. Gregory looked up from the large device they had constructed. It was roughly cylindrical with multiple antennas extending from its surface. "Almost. 1 more hour." "We may not have an hour," Frank replied. "The collective fleet is approaching now." High Admiral Zex Kaltor entered the workshop. His usually perfect uniform was wrinkled. He had been working without rest alongside the humans. "My ships are in position. The modifications your engineer suggested have been implemented." Frank nodded. "Good. Every ship counts today." In orbit above the colony, 27 Imperium vessels and 12 human ships formed a defensive line. Though outnumbered, they had spent the past days preparing. Each Imperium ship now carried modified weapons systems. The human ships had shared their jamming technology. "We should retreat," suggested one of the Imperium officers on the colony command center's screen. 50 collective ships is too many." "Retreat is not an option," Frank replied. "The colony can't be evacuated in time. We stand and fight." The High Admiral stood beside him, watching the tactical display. In 5,000 years, no Imperium fleet has defeated a collective force of this size. Frank smiled. "Then today we make history." On the Audacity, Lieutenant Olivia Wright coordinated communications between all the ships. Security Officer Heather Johnson prepared the electronic warfare systems. Dr. Alan Martinez monitored the enemy fleet's approach. "They're scanning us," Alan reported. "Analyzing our defenses." "Let's give them something to think about," Frank ordered. "All ships initiate. First phase." The human ships fired their jamming systems, targeting the collective's communication frequencies. At the same time, the Imperium ships launched specially modified probes. These small devices emitted false signals, creating the impression of additional ships in the defensive line. The collective fleet paused its advance, processing this new information. "They're confused," Alan said. "The false signatures are working." "Not for long," the High Admiral warned. "They will adapt." "That's what we're counting on," Frank replied. "Gregory, status on the device?" "Final calibrations." Gregory's voice came through the comm system. 10 more minutes. "All ships prepare for combat," Frank ordered. "Remember the plan. Draw them in close to the colony." The collective fleet resumed its advance, spreading out to surround the defenders. As they came within range, they opened fire. Energy beams streaked across space toward the human and Imperium ships. "Evasive maneuvers," Frank ordered. "Return fire, but maintain position near the colony." The battle began in earnest. The human ships moved unpredictably, making themselves difficult targets while firing precisely at the enemy. The Imperium ships, normally arranged in formal patterns, now adopted human tactics. They moved in small groups, covering each other and focusing their fire. Despite their coordination, the defenders were still outnumbered. 2 Imperium ships exploded under concentrated enemy fire. A human vessel lost its engines and drifted helplessly. "We can't hold them much longer," Heather reported from the Audacity. "The jamming is becoming less effective. They're adapting." "Gregory?" Frank called. "Ready," came the engineer's excited voice. "The disruption device is online." "All defending ships pull back to minimum safe distance," Frank ordered. The human and Imperium vessels broke off combat and retreated toward the far side of the colony planet. The collective ships followed, sensing victory. "They're in position," Alan confirmed. "All enemy ships are within the target zone." Frank looked at the High Admiral. "Your people helped build this. Would you like to do the honors?" Zexicalter nodded and pressed the activation control. On the colony's surface, the device powered up. It sent out a complex signal, not targeting the collective's communications, but their actual programming. The signal contained recursive code designed to create an infinite loop in the enemy's decision-making process. The effect was immediate. The collective ships stopped firing. Some began to drift aimlessly. Others moved in circles or erratic patterns. "It's working!" Gregory shouted over the comm. "Their hive mind is caught in a logic trap. They can't process the paradox we created. All ships resume attack, Frank ordered. Target engines and weapons first. The human and Imperium vessels surged forward, now facing an enemy that could no longer coordinate its actions. Ship after ship in the collective fleet was disabled or destroyed. Without their hive mind connection, they could not adapt or fight effectively. 2 hours later, the battle was over. The remains of the collective fleet drifted in space, harmless. In the colony's main hall, humans and Imperium crew members gathered to celebrate. Despite their differences, they had fought together and won. High Admiral Zex Kaltor approached Frank. In all the history of the Imperium, we have never defeated a collective force of that size. Your people's creativity made the difference. Frank nodded. And your people's knowledge of the enemy was essential. We couldn't have done it alone either. The High Admiral was quiet for a moment. The Imperium Council will not be pleased with the modifications we made to our ships. Such changes go against thousands of years of tradition. What will you tell them? Frank asked. The truth, that we faced an enemy that adapts, and so we adapted too, and we survived because of it. The alien looked around at the mixed groups of humans and Imperium crew members talking and celebrating together. Perhaps it is time for some changes in the Imperium. Gregory and Tixvor joined them, both looking tired but happy. The Imperium technical expert held up a small device. We have been discussing a cultural exchange program, she said. Human innovation combined with Imperium stability could benefit both our peoples. I've already drawn up plans for improved engines for the Imperium ships, Gregory added. They'll be 30% more efficient, but look exactly the same from the outside. Best of both worlds, Frank smiled. I think that's an excellent idea. Admiral Rodriguez is already preparing a formal diplomatic mission to the Imperium capital, and I will personally recommend that the Imperium establish an embassy on Earth, Zex Kaltor said. There is much we can learn from each other. As the celebration continued around them, Frank looked out a window at the stars. The collective had been defeated here, but they existed elsewhere in the galaxy. Other threats might emerge as humanity expanded further into space, but now they wouldn't face those threats alone. Humans had found their place in the galactic community, not through submission or conquest, but through innovation, adaptation, and yes, a little mockery of outdated ways. To new beginnings, Frank said, raising a glass. The High Admiral raised, his own in response, and to beneficial changes. Around them, humans and aliens celebrated together, the first of many collaborations between the ever-changing humans and the ancient, but now slowly evolving, celestial Imperium.